I'm asked all the time, what is the best cruise line to travel on? I'm especially asked most of the time, what is the best of the premium cruise lines? And that's what I'm going to focus on here. I would like to say it's been made even more complicated and risky to recommend a line because they all have changed significantly, emerging from shutdown to what they were. So even if you think you're familiar with a line or a ship, that may be dated. I revisited them, traveled on many of them again, and I'm ready to tell you which I think is the best based on the changes, differences, and the things they're doing really well right now. By the way, if you're new here, welcome aboard. I'm Gary Bembridge, and it's my goal to make it fun and easy to discover, plan, and enjoy unforgettable cruise vacations. The first big question is, what is a premium cruise line? Everybody has different views of what they are. And it's complicated because there's no official category within the cruise industry about what falls into which category. However, it's generally accepted that the premium cruise category consists of mid to large ships that's carrying kind of 1,500 to 3,500 plus passengers. They offer traditional cruising experience. They have traditional cruising, kind of non-resort like ships. They're not resort type cruises. So though of course you can get incredibly premium experience on lines like Royal Caribbean, where you can actually spend up to $70,000 a week for their biggest suites, or you can stay in the very glitzy Haven on Norwegian Cruise Line. Those lines are considered more resort lines, resort ships, and they're not considered part of the premium cruise category, rightly or wrongly. The cruise lines that are usually considered as in the category are Princess Cruises, Holland America Line, Celebrity Cruises, and Cunard Cruise Line. On the surface, they all appear to be largely similar. They have pretty classic style cruise ships without resort features and bells and whistles. They offer accommodation ranging from inside cabins through to big glitzy suites. Their daily programs have broadly the same mix of onboard traditional classic cruise activities, enrichment, quizzes, dancing classes, cooking demonstrations, bingo, and that kind of stuff. It's hard, in fact, to differentiate the daily program between each of them. They all offer alternative dining venues. Their evening entertainment tends to be review type song and dance shows, live music around the ship, and guest entertainers, many of which actually flit between the different lines all the time. The ports and itineraries are actually largely the same. They all do some kind of world voyage. They cover the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Alaska. They also tend to visit Australia, parts of Asia, and so they're all pretty similar. All of them are placing more effort on food and especially dining, with celebrity chef partnerships and more venues. They tend to include a steakhouse, an Italian, a sushi, an Asian, and some sort of seafood option normally. Their excursions are also basically the same and appear to often be provided by the same or very similar port agents. I can see no real significant difference in the excursion area between them in reality. So certainly on the surface, they appear to be incredibly similar. So does that mean they all are the same and equally appealing? There are some key differences beyond the obvious, and again, these are changing. And so in my view, it's really important to understand what they're kind of dialing up and what they're focusing in on. I'm going to tell you what their big difference is, what the main pro and the biggest con of cruising with each of them is, and who I think they're best for and why. Let's start with Princess. Princess is the biggest of the premium cruise lines based on number of passengers carried, and also currently based on the size of the fleet. They have 14 ships in their fleet at the time of recording. They offer a pretty relaxed American style cruising experience, and they cruise globally. Their biggest difference is actually the sheer scale of their itineraries. They cover the biggest and the broadest breadth of the world and can take you most frequently to pretty much wherever you want to go. This is of most value to travelers of all the things they offer, in my view. Now, some of you may have thought I would say the Ocean Medallion, the wearable device, was the key difference of value to travelers. In my view, it's actually not their biggest difference. This is the device, by the way, that does things like open your cabin door. You can use it to buy things on board, order drinks and food to your specific location. You can track down friends and family that you're cruising with. It speeds up the boarding process. But in reality, a number of lines have very similar devices. And in fact, much of the benefit is really linked to an app, which all the lines have basically added many of these functions to. So what are the pros of cruising on Princess? Well, first of all, as I've said, the biggest pro is the fact that you can go pretty much anywhere on a Princess cruise. So if you like the Princess cruise experience and a traditional cruise experience, you have an enormous range of itineraries to choose from all around the world. So although they cover the same areas as everybody else, they do give you many more options. For me, the con or the downside of cruising with Princess is they've shifted into bigger and bigger ships. They're moving their fleets into these big ships, and that I feel is less appealing. It means more crowds, more lines, and while it does mean more onboard options, it comes with that downside. On the food front, I find Princess to be good and consistent, but some others, as I will discuss, I think probably have a slight edge over Princess. So who are they actually best for? Princess are great for couples and still mostly a 50+ crowd. Those people seeking a varied and wide range of destinations and importantly, range of itineraries within each region. But they're also a good option for multi-generational travel parties. They're putting more and more focus on ramping up their kids clubs and trying to create experiences that will cater for grandparents, parents and kids more evenly. So if you want to travel with a range of ages, but don't want a resort experience that you get, say, on Royal Caribbean, Norwegian or Carnival, or the full Disney experience, then consider Princess. But are they the only ones in this category suitable for this? What about Holland America? Holland America is one of the oldest of all the premium cruise lines with around 150 years in service in total. They have slightly smaller fleet than Princess with 11 ships at the time of recording. In my view, their biggest difference is they're focusing and doubling down on a couple of key areas that is increasingly setting them aside from the others, areas that may appeal to you, for example. The first is around music and music partners. They've created the music walk on their ships. Now, depending on the size of the ship, this consists of up to 5 key venues. There's the Lincoln Center stage, which is classical music in partnership with the famous Lincoln Center in New York. Billboard on board are partnered with a famous music organization which has 2 pianists playing popular music around different themes, often different decades of music. There's B.B. King's Blues Club, which is extremely popular with an 8-piece band. On the new Pinnacle class ships, they have the Rolling Stone Rock Room, a partnership with the famous magazine, featuring, of course, as the name would suggest, rock music. And then they have the World Stage, which is their big theatre, which is now focusing more on music and dance. They're putting visibly more effort on their food options, although, as I said earlier, this is true of all the premium lines. And while they definitely, in my view, have improved overall, and in specialty dining specifically, it doesn't significantly count as a massive difference when comparing premium lines, although their port-to-table cooking demonstrations are the most slick and multimedia compared to the other premium lines. So the big pro of cruising on Holland America is that if you're into music, you will find a great experience. And on their newer ships, they have also themed music artworks all around the ship, which is fantastic. And they have, of course, that good food. They also have a big experience in Alaska. They were the first cruise line to move into Alaska, and they have enormous experience there. So that's a big pro if you're thinking of cruising to Alaska. On the downside, it is seen overall as being a line that attracts an older profile. And certainly in my experience, you do find probably Holland America does attract a slightly older audience than perhaps some of the others in this category, but actually not as significant as the rumors and reputation have. It does have a reputation of being a quieter, less energetic or partying experience, and it does probably close earlier at night. But I don't find it as sleepy and quiet at all as that reputation has, but it's definitely a more laid back, a more genteel atmosphere than some of the other lines. So who's it best for? I think Holland America is best for couples, particularly couples in their 50s and 60s, 70s. They do have a big and growing kids clubs though, especially on their new ships, where they have also some family cabins as well. So it's definitely a consideration for multi-generational travel, although Princess probably still has an edge on that. But for me, this is a couple cruise line. And if you want to be fairly sure there'll be few or no kids on board, Holland America probably has the edge over the other lines in this particular category. Although they have limited solo cabins, by the way, they're also popular and a good fit for solo travelers, and they are certainly solo travelers embraced by fellow travelers and the line itself. So if Princess sounds like too large a ship and Holland America sounds a bit too staid for you, what is the best option for you then? Celebrity may be a fit. In fact, Celebrity is a cruise line that's working really hard to grow fast and change more than the others in many ways, it seems to me. At the time of recording, they have 11 ships in service, but they have 2 more coming on the horizon. They also then have a couple of expedition ships in the Galapagos on top of this. The big difference with Celebrity is they're evolving to become the modern, contemporary and more luxurious option in this kind of medium to large size premium cruising category. I mentioned earlier that all of these premium cruise lines have ships that are largely the same. However, Celebrity is actually changing this, and the only one that's really changing it significantly. They've introduced the Edge class of ships. They look very different both on the outside and on the inside. It's got things like the magic carpet on the side. It's other features like infinity balcony cabins. The decor on these, which is actually being rolled out and applied to the rest of the older fleet, it's much more modern, and it definitely stands out versus the other premium lines as being more modern and contemporary. They're also pushing very much the luxury experience with a lot of effort and change in their suite experience, which they're now calling the Retreat. They have large, dedicated retreat lounge, they have a retreat deck and a whole retreat restaurant, which is Luminaire, which is great. So the big pro is if you're looking for something that's perhaps a bit chicer, a bit more contemporary, a bit more modern, a bit more youthful, then Celebrity is definitely one to look at. And if you want a different ship to the others, then they are definitely a line for you. On the con side, I would say, of Celebrity is price. As they're pushing themselves more into luxury, they've moved their prices upwards. And they've done that partly because they've moved into all-inclusive fares. Before that, there was lots and lots of different add-ons. A Celebrity cruise fare now includes a drinks package, gratuities, and Wi-Fi included. By the way, Princess Cruises and Holland America have partly followed this, as both offer the opt-in all-inclusive fares alongside their normal cruise-only fares. Celebrity is, in my view, definitely very much for travellers looking for a perhaps more youthful, more energetic, but still a traditional cruising experience. It's not necessarily meant for younger travellers as such, but for people who want a lively experience. Whilst it's still mostly for couples, it's, as I said, those who want a chicer, more adult, more traditional experience than they would get on resort ship lines like Royal Caribbean, Norwegian and so on. It's a bit trendier, it's a bit more youthful, a bit more contemporary than the others for sure in this premium cruise category. Celebrity is also more attractive to families, especially those perhaps in their 40s and 50s with kids or teens. I'm definitely seeing that as a big trend. Now, if none of these lines I've spoken about so far sound totally right, there's one big and famous option to consider, though it has a really big downside for many. Cunard Cruise Line is the smallest of the premium lines. It's soon to have 4 ships in its fleet. It's been going for over 175 years and has the most distinctive offering of all. Its biggest difference is it's the only of the premium lines offering a richly British cruise experience versus the more American style of the others. It is also firmly rooted in the design and format of cruising from the glory days of cruising, kind of before flying. The decor on the fleet is heavily Art Deco inspired, and it has a clear and overt 3-class system: Britannia, Princess Grill and Queen's Grill, the grade of cabin determining which restaurant you eat in. Although this is actually true on other lines like Celebrity, it's less obvious and less overt than it is on Cunard. It's also the only cruise line that has a true ocean liner versus cruise ship designs in its fleet. This is the Queen Mary II. It's specifically designed and strengthened hull. It's the only line that offers a scheduled transatlantic service which runs from about April, May to about October time, and then more ad hoc transatlantics in the winter season. The biggest pro, without a shadow of a doubt, is the Queen Mary II and the transatlantic crossing. This is one of the iconic and probably the only must-do trip, no matter what line appeals to you, for any other trip that you may want to go on. Other pros, they do have, in my view, the best insights and enrichment speaker program of all the lines, and they have a large orchestra every night in the Queen's room for ballroom dancing, if that's something you're looking for. The downside is probably the dressing up. They're very strict with their dress codes. Formal nights do mean for gentlemen at least a dark suit and tie, although most will actually be in a black tie or tuxedo, and ladies in very glamorous gowns. So the biggest con for many people is the dress code. It's really, really strictly enforced. I also think another con for Cunard is it's actually Not as glamorous as the image suggests. Once you're on board, it is actually fairly similar on a day-to-day basis to all of the other premium cruise lines. It's not as glamorous as you would expect, except for those formal dressing up nights when it does feel very glamorous indeed. So who is it best for? It's definitely best for people who want to do that iconic transatlantic. It's also great for people who want a British experience rather than the American one that the others are offering. It does work best, in my view, for couples over 50 who also like the formality, and like on Holland America, it's also very good and used to catering for solo travelers, though there are only a limited amount of solo cabins on their ships. They do have a smallish kids club, and some people do bring kids on board, but it's not really for families in my view, and most guests are not particularly thrilled when there are kids on the ship, in my experience anyway. To find out more about each of these lines, watch this playlist of 4 videos with a deep dive on each of these lines, starting with the biggest surprise and challenge I face about cruising on Cunard. See you over there.